say I'm a huge fan because I obviously utilize all your goodies that you guys went to school for. So, and I do work in trade, so you can have a free account. I just would love some time on your tables. I know anytime an attorney comes up, it's always, there's just so many questions, and same thing with banking. There's definitely a lot of questions as you try and set things up for your future. And so, what I can certainly attest to Sarah. It's funny, we all work together, but Sarah and her mom, their firm is my personal attorney as well. So I can definitely attest to it is an individual, unique situation. You have to look at, are you married? Do you have a spouse? There's so many different things, and it's the most problems I see are people try and do it online to try and save a few dollars. It always comes back to bite them. So if anything, I can attest to their service, but also that they're very fair. The last thing you want is when you go see an attorney, I always turn on my phone oh my gosh, we're on the clock, right? And every minute I speak to them and I can say, without hesitation that Sarah and her mom always give great advice, and oftentimes people come away without using their services and end up being a sole proprietor and knowing that they're there should they want to change down the road. So I think what you get is very fair and a very honest response. And again, all of you are unique, and you really can't just kind of squeeze that into an online thing. So to segue into banking, what I did is I didn't want you guys to feel like you're in school again, but I have found that it can be overwhelming to get a lot of information. So I just created this green sheet here, and so I'm just going to talk about some 5 questions, and if you want to fill in those answers, because I think when you write it, it obviously stays in your mind, but also down the road when you're like, gosh, what was that crazy blonde girl saying she talked fast, and I don't remember what she was mentioning. So the first thing is now you've decided that you want to either start a practice or you're going to go work for another practice. What does that mean? How do you manage your expenses, and how do you find a bank that's right for you? I would say 95% of people in your position end up finding a bank that they already do their personal banking with. They're comfortable there, that's close to home, it makes sense. And oftentimes that could be the best fit for you. Another thing too though is as you look forward and what you want out of a bank or a credit union or a community bank is what's best for you for your business sense. So not every personal bank where you personally bank is good for business. So how do you choose a bank that's right for you? One, I would say, do you have an existing relationship right now? And what you want out of a relationship from a banker is typically you want somebody who can make decisions. Going into a large bank and sitting down with the new accounts person is not, in my eyes, the best fit for you. Oftentimes those people are fresh out of school, and oftentimes those people have very little experience. When you start to work with branch managers and business bankers, relationship managers like myself, I've been doing this for 20 years. So I definitely feel as though I have been around the block and seen what businesses go through. And so I think when it comes time to make a decision, that new accounts person can open the account for you. Their job is to take your information and bring it back. They're not going to play that advisory role. Very few people really play an advisory role in banking. I think it's unique and it's an individual. Most times you're going to find that it's going to be the branch manager who's been in banking 15, 20, 25 years, who's going to be able to tell you and make decisions for you. So I would say having a good relationship is number one. 2 is convenience, either being in close proximity. So, and we'll talk about this in just a few minutes about how you're going to accept payment. If you are a cash-intensive business and you have a lot of cash, you're going to want a bank that's close to you. Let's be honest and be fair. You're going to want somewhere that you can go. It goes back to fees. We'll talk a little bit about fees and how cash handling is really something that I ill-advise, and also it can also cause some problems from an accounting perspective. The third is an ATM network. If you're using an ATM to either do your deposits or get cash, is knowing that you have a good ATM network that you can go to. The fourth is fees. There's been a lot of changes in the industry over the last 5-10 years. So you had former organizations like Washington Mutual, great bank. They were a free-based bank. They had free checking accounts, and that was the big buzzword, was free checking account. Unfortunately, some people didn't manage their accounts very well, and so the free ended up being very expensive, because if they didn't get you for the $10 monthly fee, they were going to get you for the non-sufficient funds or for the return checks or any foreign ATMs, all those types of things. Banks are with the exception of credit unions, banks are for-profit entities. It doesn't mean, just like you guys are a for-profit entity, it doesn't mean that all banks are bad, but fees are sometimes a necessary evil, and we'll talk about how you can limit your fees for banking. And then fifth is loans. It depends on where you're at in your practice. Are you going to need to sign a lease agreement and have a place? Are you going to need to buy tables, chairs, signs for the building? You know, what type of capital investment are you going to need in order to further your practice? Are you going to buy a practice? Maybe you're going to buy existing practice and take over. So you may have needs for loans, whether it's now or in the future. So setting yourself up with a good bank is paramount for those future needs, but also for your immediate needs. Why should you open a business account? So as Sarah was talking, you have a lot of entities, and you can be a private practitioner who does massage therapy, let's say, out of your home. And why would you, if it's all going on the taxes, why do you need a separate account for that? There's many reasons. So the first reason is clean and accurate bookkeeping is essential. It is, I just saw it in the paper today, don't give the IRS a reason to call you in for an audit. The likelihood of being audited, there's usually 2 or 3 reasons why you'd be audited. One is you make a lot of money. I hope that we all have that problem. I do not have that problem. The second one is if you decide to go to a firm, kind of like those online firms, you go to a firm that the best thing that this guy can do for you is give you a giant refund and help you save on taxes. Typically what happens in those firms, we've seen it, and we've seen a lot of people be very damaged by it, but there was a large firm in UTC, and everybody went to him because he saved you a ton, and he set up all these royalties, and it was actually a law and CPA firm. Every single one of his clients, of his 2,000 clients, were audited, and most of them are all paying back taxes. So it is very real. And then the third reason is when you, if you are a business, typically 5 years is what they're going to give you to get started and start showing a profit. 3 out of those 5 years, you don't show a profit. This is a hobby. This is not a business. So it is very important. And then let me tell you the most significant reason. This is a side note. Some of you in here, you guys are all very different ages. I will tell you, if you do not pay Social Security taxes, you are going to hurt yourself for retirement. It is imperative that you pay and you show income for Social Security. Whether or not Social Security is around, and when we decide, or when, you know, those of us that are on the younger side go to collect, it is imperative you do that. I can assure you that you cannot live on $500 a month on Social Security when that time comes. So please, so back to why you should open a business account. I got off on a tangent. Professionalism. So the first one is clean and accurate bookkeeping for ease at the end of the year when you sit down and go through your taxes, and so you are prepared for an IRS audit should that ever happen. And 2, professionalism. When you write a check to a supplier, or you write a check, a refund check, or you write a check to your lease, there is a level of professionalism to have a business account. There's also a level of professionalism. I know from my standpoint, when I go to have my massage therapy, I'm writing it out to the massage clinic, and I write my, a check for them for their tip. But I definitely feel more comfortable for some reason, and I don't know why that is, but writing a check to a business entity or a clinic. And then the third is if you decide that incorporating is the best choice for you, it is by law that you have to have a separate account. The IRS requires you to have a business checking account. So we covered those. So 1 was clean and accurate bookkeeping, 2, professionalism, and then if you are a corporation, it's mandatory that you have that. So let's talk about like brass tacks. How are you guys going to get paid? How many of you are currently already in practice and getting paid? Fantastic. How many of you get paid with cash? And how many of you get paid with credit card? And how many with check? You take all forms of payment. What is the majority? Let me hear from some of you. What's the majority of the form of payment? Credit card? Check? Check. Anybody in here with majority of cash? Awesome. So let's talk about each one of these and how these affect your business. Obviously, you guys already know because you're taking the payments, but let's talk about them for the sake of having a better understanding. 1, checks. When you have a risk of check, someone writes you a check, you always run the risk that there might be non-sufficient funds. Has anybody had a return check? Okay. It's usually far in between. Hopefully you guys know your clients really well. Obviously we trust you, we unrobe and let you do all kinds of crazy things to us. So hopefully we have a good relationship. But there's going to be times when it's a new person and you don't necessarily know them very well. So there, you do run that risk. When you present a check to your bank that has a non-sufficient funds for this person, you may be charged. It's likelihood that if you're with a big bank, you will be charged for that, as well as your client on their end is going to be charged. So you have to determine, $40, $50, $90 check. If you're going to charge them for a non-sufficient fund. And if you are going to charge them for a return check, just make sure that you explain that to them when they hand you over their check. It's obviously the cheapest form outside of cash. It's the second cheapest to be paid in. You just, again, run the risk. Cash, there's no risk to you, right? Unless it's a forged, a hot off the press $100 bill. But the likelihood of that, I think, is fairly rare as well. It's just a matter of keeping the cash and documenting the cash, as well as getting it to the bank. So I see so many practitioners are like, oh, I'll get to the bank today. And you get busy and you don't go to the bank. And then the next day comes, I'll get to the bank today, and you don't get to the bank. And you leave this envelope full of cash. Depending on each situation, it's once the cash is gone, you're not getting it back. So it's imperative to get it to the bank. Also, you have to understand that if you have limitations, hopefully none of you have this problem, but you bring in $3,000, $5,000 worth of cash at a time, it's definitely, the bank has regulatory guidelines that they need to document that as well. With the Patriot Act and with terrorism and any alcohol, tobacco type of cash laundering, it's definitely going to raise red flags at a bank. Then the next choice is credit cards. As we all know, credit cards have their own inherent costs to accept them. They're very convenient. People rarely carry checks. People rarely carry cash. Now it's kind of the debit card is the big buzz. Depending on the type of card that is accepted, is going to be the interchange rate. So if you take an American Express card, it's going to have the highest interchange rate. If you take maybe a business credit card that has mileage program, it's going to have maybe a 3.5–4% rate. Taking a bank debit card for somebody that has it's their bank ATM card that has the MasterCard or Visa logo on it, that's going to be the lowest interchange rate, somewhere around the 2%. Now you can set up fixed rates. There are companies, there is a multitude of people who can accept credit cards. You can have an individual processor, like a third-party vendor, and I can help put you in touch with people like that. Or you can do like a PayPal that has a fixed rate for regardless of what the ticket amount is. So if you don't have a fixed rate, it's going to look at the card. It's going to look at the amount and the rewards card for that particular card. So one of the things you can always say is, when you're asking your clients for payment and you do accept credit cards, is ask them if they hand you an American Express or a Discover, one of those higher interchange rate cards, is say, I'd love to take these, but if you have a debit card, it helps save me some costs. I think people are very understanding about the costs that come with accepting credit cards. But I work at a bank. I never have cash, and I rarely have my checkbook. So I understand the infrequency of it. Yeah.
What companies would you recommend that have a pretty good system for credit cards?
Okay. I recommend usually using a third-party vendor, and there are two ways to go. One is with your bank. Your bank may offer credit card processing. And then there are third-party vendors or online vendors that you can use. When it comes to third-party vendors, you can do a quick Google search or just type in, San Diego Merchant Services. I'll give you the name of a couple people. Typically what I do is for my individual clients is if they're an existing company and accepting credit cards, I will run what I call just a quick synopsis to look at their rates and see if I send it out to my 3 or 4 vendors and see if they can match or beat those rates. The other thing that you can do is if you're with a bank, you may pay a little bit higher fee. And the reason why that you're going to pay a higher fee if you do bank with a bank that offers merchant services is there's 2 types of settlement. When you take your credit card, you can either get paid that day, meaning that night when you batch your credit card. So you swipe the credit card at the end of the night, you tell the machine, I want all the credit cards I took today to go into my bank account. When you use a third-party vendor, the way third-party vendors make money is they hold those funds until the next day. And it's not necessarily that they're holding them intentionally, it's just that they're collecting the money, and then it takes a 24-hour turnaround time for them to get the money to your bank. So the difference is that if you use a bank that offers merchant services, they know that's the convenience. They know that if you're a cash-tight business, if your cash flow is an issue, that you get the convenience of having it batched that night. So that means you get immediate credit, basically. If you can wait that next day and cash flow isn't an issue, I recommend going with possibly a third-party vendor because you're going to save on the rates. Because they're getting the spread overnight, whereas your bank isn't getting that spread, which is why you're going to pay a little bit more on that side. The other thing with merchant contracts is that you need to know is in these days you really shouldn't be paying for a machine. Banks typically will charge you for the machine to use. It should be free. The terminal in and of itself should be free. You will sign a contract typically, any those contracts, and that's why sometimes going with like a PayPal or those types of things that are contract free are nice. You'll pay a little bit higher rate, but if you close shop or you decide you don't want to take credit cards anymore, you're not going to have that contract, or you decide, wow, I went to Costco and got this great deal. They love to keep you in contracts. Typical contract range is somewhere between 2 and 3 years to sign up with a vendor.
Is that true for the third party too?
Yes, yeah.
A lot of the scheduling software or the bookkeeping software you guys might be using might have that built in as well.
Right. QuickBooks.
Mindbody Online, they have point of sale, and
you just enter your
thing, you swipe it.
And there's, the Square on your iPad, you can use those. Those are fixed rates. There's a lot of options now, much more than there used to be. But I think the most important thing is accepting credit cards. I do think that you might miss out if you don't take them on being paid, but just recognizing that you need to build that into your cost of for every credit card you take, the other thing I want to tell you is do not upcharge the person. Do not say, minimum is $10, or you can certainly do it with the tips, because I understand if you don't want to pay fees on a tip. So let's say you own a clinic and you have other practitioners that are there and they want to pay the business and they don't necessarily, and I want to include my tip on my debit card because it just makes sense. A lot of times you as a business owner may not want to pay that $2 off or you can just take it away from the practitioner and say they paid with credit card. Has anybody here ever think you need a loan or try to go for a loan to start up a clinic? You realize that banks don't like to give money away, right? All right. So there are a couple opportunities out there for business loans. So some of the helpful tips. One is business plan. Very hard to go to a bank and present yourself in a professional manner and say, well, I just need it for a table and some chairs and some equipment. And the bank will say, well, that's great. Let's look at your personal history. So you guys obviously have coming through this program either paid cash or you got student loans to go through your schooling. So one of those is making sure that you're making those payments on time and making sure you button up your personal credit history. There is no bank in town that is not going to require a personal guarantee for a small business loan. You will put your firstborn on the line with banks for getting a small business administration loan. So business plan. If you don't have a business plan, I highly, if I walk away from anything outside today, please, even if it's a 3-page business plan, put a business plan together. When you put it on paper, when you start having these questions and you start thinking about it, and Angela, I will send you the toolkit. We have a great toolkit that somebody put together that will walk you through some of those questions, your strengths, your weaknesses, how you're going to get business, how you're going to keep business, all those good things. So business plan, which should include your projections. How many people can you touch a day? If you say you're going to make $100,000 and you're going to see 15 people a day, it's likely that's not really going to be the case, unless you're like go gadget, acupuncturist or massage therapist. But a market analysis, knowing who's around your area, what makes you different, why should somebody come to you and not go to somebody else, and also your experience, your schooling should be included in that, and your experience in showing that you know what you're talking about. 2 is the use of proceeds. So there is some legitimacy to saying, yes, you need a table, yes, you need some chairs. That should be part of your business plan and part of your financial projections of what you need. 3 is a personal guarantee. You're going to pledge your personal wealth. whether, and for some of you who are married or have significant others that you are, that you file tax returns with, this is a really important thing, because if you pledge your house for a small business loan, your spouse is going to need to be involved in this as well. So it's important to know that a personal guarantee is going to be there. Another thing you can do is there's a Dun & Bradstreet, which is a company that it's different than an EIN. This gives you this number, and it shows that you're a business, and it kind of helps bankers go back and see if you have a history. It's free. You can. It's a 9-digit number. It's a simple process. You can go through that. You don't need to sign up for any of the other bells and whistles of it. It just goes to show. It gives you a number that shows what industry you're in, and any kind of your credit history. I think for us, when you go to the small bank, and we can go back to the types of banks, when you go to a small bank, you sit down. If you go to a big bank and you walk in, you talk to the new accounts person, they're going to sell you, they, one, make commission, and two, they're going to give you the business, you need this number. You sit down with someone like myself, and I'll say, yeah, it's fine, I just need the number, but we're not going to look at that. I mean, we're going to look at your tax returns.
Sure.
Bottom line is, we'll go back to taxes here. That's my next one. So getting a DUNS number, we can go back and forth. I personally think it's just a budget.
Having the numbers fine.
Right. If you have the number, if not, if you don't need a loan, don't go get the number. It's not a big deal. It's not necessary. It's just if you think you're going to go for a loan down the road, just spend the 15, 20 minutes, get it, and know that small banks are going to look at you holistically and not just numbers on a Dun & Bradstreet number. Paying taxes versus getting a bank loan. Very few people like to pay taxes. I do, because I do like paved roads and running water, but I don't like to pay a lot of it, and I like to be able to determine where my taxes are going. It is a necessary evil, unfortunately, if you, for example, you have a $300,000 a year business, a clinic, and you want to expand, and you need to get a loan for that. But on your tax returns, it shows a loss every year. Never going to get a loan. They need to know that you're profitable, that you're going to be able to. It's not just about being profitable, it's about making enough money to pay back the loan. So what we look at is we look at your expenses, we look at what you bring in, and if there's a negative to it, we're going to try and add back some stuff like your salary. But if you take a $300,000 business, you take a $60,000 salary, but your expenses, your personal expenses are $60,000, can't add anything back. You need every dime you're making in order to live and pay your mortgage and pay your car payments and your student loans back. So it is important, and there are a lot of bookkeepers and a lot of CPAs, and they think their job is to completely save you on taxes. And while that's partly true, you also need to have a 3 to 5 year plan. If you're going to go big and you're going to run a clinic, or you're going to need a loan, you need to have those in mind. Most of you probably aren't going to be in that realm. I would imagine you just want to love on people and make them well, and you're a single practitioner. In those situations, you should be able to get financing individual pieces. I think there's equipment companies and other specialty areas that will be able to give you a loan or a credit card to manage those purchases. So this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. And I'm going to button up on time because I know we're running out of time. So loans. And the other thing that you could do is get a credit card. Start off with a business credit card. It will be run based on your personal credit history, and you get it in the name of the business and utilize that. It's a really good way to establish business credit. And then just quick and easy steps to help protect yourself against account fraud. It's unfortunate, but it is rampant right now. Every day we're getting information from the FBI, the IRS, you name it. We see it coming through, and I can't tell you how many times it's because someone has not changed their password on their email. And for example, 99% of my clients their offices aren't anywhere near where my offices are. So most of the stuff I do is either by the phone or by email. I had a client, he is a very large client, and sent in an email saying he needed to send a wire. He needed an account balance. So my teller wrote back and said, well, which account? Because he's got about 50 accounts with us. Which account? Didn't hear back from him, so about a half an hour later, she picked up the phone and called and said, what account did you need your balance in? He said, I never sent an email. Realized that someone had gone into his email, and I can't tell you, this has happened probably about 10, 15 times in the last month, where this person got in. Now, he has a personal email address that he uses. He's been in business 25 years, and his name at AOL.com is still the email address he uses. 1, get a business email. So cheap, so easy, whether it's Better Massage, a Gmail, whether it's 123 Magic, whatever it is, get a Gmail account. It's easy to use, or a Yahoo account, and have your business have a separate email address. Secondly, change your password. Every 6 months, without fail, change your password. If you think it's been compromised for any reason, this goes for those of you who are in a setting where maybe it's you and a buddy sharing a computer. You're both practitioners, you share an office, you have one computer there to do your scheduling, to run your credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. Never keep your password when you're on Gmail or you're on your Yahoo, and it can keep your password where you just type in your username and your password will pop up, or vice versa, where your username's there and you just need to type in your password. Don't have any auto memory on there. Make sure you take that off. So I like to give hints for password security. Do a phrase like "I love massage," "I love needles," whatever it may be. "I love dogs." And then for me, I've got an A and S's in my name, so I'll use the @ symbol or a dollar symbol for my A or for my S. So those are kind of harder codes to break. So setting up the business email account, setting up a security phrase or a special character. Use bill pay to pay your bills. It should be a free feature in your business banking. You really shouldn't be writing that many checks, in all honesty. You should really use bill pay, and there's a reason for that. Every time you write a check, and that check sits for right now, this is the best time. There are thieves breaking into mailboxes because they know lots of people are sending their IRS checks. So they see a check made payable to IRS, they see an envelope to the IRS, absolutely taking that and running with it.
You never put your bills outside of your house on your mailbox.
No,
Yeah.
never do that. So either drop it there at the post office if you're going to do that, but using a bill pay service is great because most of them are electronic.
What are your thoughts on, I don't know if there's a big difference in this and bill pay, but like the automatic withdrawal?
It's back and forth. I like auto withdrawal because then I personally set all my bill pays up for recurring payments, so I manage it. So if for my SDG&E, those types of things for the auto debits, I think are fairly reasonable. The chance of SDG&E reading something incorrectly, you're probably going to get it resolved quickly. Car payments, things like that, auto payments for your loans, I think are all very easy and reasonable. It's the gym memberships and those types of things that they're hard to turn off, if you will. I like having control. I like being able to set my recurring payment when I want to set it, so I just get the information. Most times with bill pay, you'll set up the bill the first time, and then it will quickly turn into auto payment. Using bill pay. The next one is balance your checkbook every month. You are liable if you allow 2 bank statements to go. Let's say you get super busy because you're oiling everybody up and you don't check your bank account. Then you realize 3 months later, oh my gosh, somebody went to Mexico and used my card, and you call the bank. The bank is only liable for so long. And so you need to balance your checkbook every month to really be cognizant of fraud. So if you go 10 months and you're, like me, in December, and you're like, oh gosh, I got to get on the numbers of CPA in time for, end of year, and you realize, wait, I don't remember that charge. So it's fresh in mind, try and do it at the end of the month. There's auto reconciliation, there's lots of things you can do with Quicken or QuickBook and all those different things. And then 5, I think I already used this, set up separate users on computers. So let's say you're on a Mac or a PC, set up a separate user. So you have your user, and when you log in, everything's set up, and then if you're sharing a computer with another practitioner, have them set up. So that way, you just never know. And then, what were we going to talk about? Oh, my personal little plug. Speaking of that, I had a client yesterday, another big client, had a big deposit. It was about a $300,000 deposit, and there was a huge escrow check in there. And it's made payable to the wrong company. And I knew right away it was supposed to be made payable to ABC, and it was made payable to CBC. Right? So there was one thing of it was off. So I called the client's not there. And I'm like, this is a significant deposit. So I'm going to call the maker of the check, which happened to be an escrow company. And the escrow number was listed on there. So I called the escrow company, explain I'm their banker, I can't reach them, but I need them to know this check was made payable to the wrong entity. Was that a mistake on your end, or did you really think you're supposed to make this check payable to them? Because I'm trying to get my client immediate credit. If they tell me it was a mistake on their end, I will approve it, I will fix it, and I will let it go through. But if they can't tell me that it was a mistake, no, it should have been made payable to this, I got to call my client, let them know. I got to leave them a message, this isn't happening. So I called the escrow company, sure enough, it was their mistake. But they say, please don't deposit it, we want to make it right. So what do? I talk with this person, she sends me a FedEx, she emails me a FedEx receipt. I go to the Fed. I drive to the FedEx office. Meanwhile, my client has no idea what's going on. I drive to the FedEx office. I put the check back in the FedEx. I overnight the check overnight with the understanding that she's going to overnight a check back to us. So I give my client immediate credit knowing that this check is going to make it. And it's that kind of stuff. So I talked to my client last night. Most of my clients call me on my cell phone, but let him know. He was obviously, I was a little frustrated because of the FedEx envelope that I was just going to just drop off on my way home. It had already been picked up, so I ended up driving to a Kinko store. So my husband's like, where are you? And I'm like, I'm going to the Kinko store. Why are you doing that? So anyways, I do love my clients. I do take great pride in my clients and what they do. I think it's incredible to be a small business owner. I think, I'm a little bit of a wuss, and I like my paycheck coming on a regular basis. So I do believe in what you guys do. In your packet, I've included for Sarah is if you are going to open up different entities, what documents you'll need to open up account. If you decide that you want to be a sole proprietor and you haven't actually gone through. So if you open up a bank account, you can have a bank account without filling out a fictitious business name statement if all the checks are going to be made payable to Susie Jones Massage. If your full name is in your title, you do not need to fill out a fictitious business name. But if you do want to make it out to the best massage clinic in the world, you need to fill this out. And then if you want to bank with me, I would love to have you. You get free accounts, but just every once in a while, love on me. This information, most of the time what I'll do is I'll take it over the phone. And then if you are interested in small business credit cards, there's information on the different programs and a business credit card application. You don't need to see me to do it. You can do this on your own. Fees, most of those are waived. We're not a fee-based bank, so just a little plug on us.